Why did the translators of Genesis choose the English words that they did? What might their choices have done to the Genesis story? We, within the limitations of a short essay, just put that there, would like to examine what English Bible translators have done down through the centuries, and more importantly, what we think they could and ought to do today, if they are to avoid misleading those who read Genesis 1 in 2012. This article was published on November 11th, 2012. But fear not, we will look at only 6 Hebrew words, 5 nouns and a verb, 6 words that have the power to transform this familiar Bible account. In translating Genesis, we have picked other English words, perfectly legitimate alternative English words. So the Genesis creation account now describes the coming to be, not of the universe that we know, but of a world that is markedly different from the one in which we presently live. It is, however, the world that was familiar to the ancient Hebrews, for whom the inspired account of Genesis was originally composed. Following each of the 6 words below is a listing of the ways each Hebrew word has been translated, beginning in 1530 with Tyndale's translation of Genesis. Shemayim, heaven, sky, visible heavens, heaven as realm of the stars. Although Shemayim is a plural form, its meaning here is singular, like mathematics in English, as reflected in the Greek translation known as the Septuagint, which uses the singular form Uranon. For Tyndale, in his time and place, to translate Shemayim as heaven was entirely appropriate, but that is no longer the case. In 1530, Shemayim meant the visible dome of the sky in which the sun was embedded. That dome rotated around the earth, carrying the sun by day and the moon and the stars by night. For us, however, heaven often means cosmos, or astronomical universe, since neither the author of Genesis, nor any other human being up to Tyndale's time, including Tyndale himself, was aware of what we mean by universe. It would seem prudent to select another word from the list above or elsewhere. We propose sky, since that is surely closer to what the ancient Hebrews, those who first listened to the Genesis account, pictured mentally. Therefore, Shemayim equals sky, not universe. Eretz, land, earth, country, way, or ground. To follow Tyndale and translate Eretz as earth is to mislead the modern-day reader into picturing planet Earth, for this is what the earth inevitably conjures up for us in the context of a cosmology. As before, what Tyndale could get away with without doing injustice to the Hebrew text is no longer possible for us. Land, the most frequently used English equivalent for Eretz, is much less likely to mislead. This, however, is not merely land as in real estate, but also, and often, land as in promised land or the land of Israel. Thus, Eretz Israel is now the state of Israel. Therefore, Eretz equals land, not earth. It's not going to work. Rakia. Now this is a major one, so we're going to come back to this one after we get done with this article. Extended, solid surface, vault of heaven, supporting waters above, firmament, dome, vault. As we have seen, Shemayim and Eretz, the English words used by Tyndale and most of his successors, have come to mean quite different things over the past half millennium. The Genesis Earth has become planet Earth. The Genesis heaven has become universe. In translating Rakia, we confront a different but equally difficult challenge. What the word still meant when Tyndale was deciding how to render it in English was a rigid, probably metallic, dome of heaven, which surrounded and protected us. He thought the sun and the moon to be embedded in the firmament along with the fixed stars, and that the whole assemblage, that's why the word firmament is used in older English translations. and that the whole assemblage rotated around an axis that pointed toward the North Star. We no longer believe that to be the case. In fact, we don't believe there ever was a firmament. Faced with this situation today, translators have gone in two directions. One group, unwilling to translate the Hebrew as it reads, has translated rakia as expanse, fully aware the average reader will interpret expanse as atmospheric expanse, which does exist, but which the Hebrew does not support at all. The other group of translators has translated rakia dome or vault, not worrying about the fact that space exploration has found no evidence of such an entity. Therefore, rakia equals vault, not firmament, and certainly not atmospheric expanse. Now we're going to come back to this word rakia again, because this concept of a solid sky is one of the most heated issues of the Genesis 1 account, because of course we know the sky is not solid. So if it can be demonstrated that the Hebrews believed in a solid sky, this is going to cause all kinds of problems to our literalist interpretation of Genesis 1. So therefore, you can also expect there will be tremendous opposition and resistance to the idea that the Hebrews believed in a solid sky. So we're going to come back to rakia again. We're not done with that word. Arab. I don't know if I'm pronouncing these correctly. I'm not a Hebrew speaker. Okay, I don't. If I'm not pronouncing these correctly, I apologize. I'm not attempting to offend anybody who speaks Hebrew correctly. I mean, back when these texts were originally written, Hebrew didn't even have vowels, and the pronunciation of a lot of these words was lost over the centuries. Anyway, so we really don't know probably how these words were originally pronounced back in the day. But even compared to what they're supposed to be pronounced like today, I don't know if I'm getting it right. So if I get it wrong and you know better, you know better than me, you're smarter than me. Please don't be mad at me. I'm doing the best I can. Arab. Evening, twilight, sunset, approaching darkness, connoting danger and hence dread. With Arab, the translator's problems continue. The problem arises because of the unique role that Arab plays in the Genesis account, repeatedly associated with Boker, which means dawning. The historically dominant KJV, King James Version, translated this association as straightforward addition, evening plus morning equals day. However, the Hebrew text actually says there was evening. Then when light displaced the darkness, day came to be. This arrival of light, because it was the first time light had come to be, was day one. There will soon be a second, a third, a fourth day, etc., as reflected in the NRSV, NIV, and other recent translations. Taking note of the immediately preceding explanation that God called the light day and called the darkness night, a more appropriate interpretation of the text, as the author verbalized it and the ancient Hebrews heard it, is that the darkness was not an intrinsic component of the day, but a preceding non-day. It did not merit God's approval as good. In other words, it was the dawning, not the darkness, that inaugurated the day. The darkness was not the first part of each day, but rather the separation between the days. This understanding of the text is confirmed by the fact that, despite frequent claims to the contrary, the day for the ancient Hebrews did begin in the morning. See Genesis 19:33 and 34, Judges 19:9, 1 Samuel 19:11. We'll look at those when we get there. It was not until the intertestamental period that one day each week, the Sabbath, began at sundown. So Arab meant something like gathering darkness, or oncoming night, connoting the danger and fear that accompanied darkness in a world that was lit only by candles. Therefore, Arab equals gathering darkness, not just evening. Boker, morning, break of day, dawn, approach of day, connoting security and joy. Boker, in contrast to Arab, means not only morning, but often in Scripture connotes the relief and joy accompanying the daylight that conquers the darkness. Therefore, Boker equals welcome dawn, not simply morning. Wahaya, and it was, and there was, and it came to be, and there came to be, as in, and it was gathering darkness, and there came to be dawning. Wahaya is a compound Hebrew word combining a third-person singular form of the verb to be, was, came to be, there was, there came to be, with 2, the ubiquitous conjunction and, which could mean now in a logical rather than chronological sense, or sometimes nothing more than that the speaker is continuing, something like ah or in English speech. In this latter case, it is often left untranslated. With wahaya, we come to the word that relates Arab to boker. Though it is rarely done, there is no inherent reason why the compound wahaya cannot be translated one way in one phrase and differently in the immediately following phrase, if the change more clearly conveys the meaning of the original text. Thus we suggest, there was gathering darkness, there came to be dawning, day 1. With such a translation, the Genesis text finally makes sense. Whereas the influential KJV and the evening and the morning were the first day, seems mistakenly to include darkness as a constituent part of that day. That day initiating all days was preceded by darkness dominating everywhere. It was constituted by God's glorious light everywhere. Therefore, wahaya equals there was, there came to be. So we translate Genesis 1, verses 1 through 8. To begin with, God brought into existence the sky and the land. Now as for the land, it was without form or function. We'll get to those words next, by the way. Darkness covered the water, and God's Spirit hovered over the surface of the abyss. God said, "Let there be light." Light came to be, and God saw that the light functioned well. God separated the light from the darkness, and named the light day and the darkness night. There was gathering darkness, there came to be dawning, one creation day. God said, "Let there be a vault within the water, and let it separate the water." God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above the vault, and thus it came to be. God named the vault sky. There was gathering darkness, there came to be dawning, a second creation day. With this translation, few modern readers would mistake the text for anything other than what it is, an explanation by and for ancient Hebrews. It speaks in language that the first hearers readily understood. Their home, their world of sky and land, had come into existence by the will of a transcendent creator. We, with thousands of years of accumulated information, though not necessarily greater wisdom, inevitably use quite different language. But the inspired and inspiring truth is just the same. Our planetary home, attached to an unspectacular star in a corner of the galaxy we call the Milky Way, came into existence by the will of a transcendent creator.